And so that's wonderful. So now that we have a contract that's deployed, let's write a test for it, okay? Let's go ahead and just on this same terminal, I'm going to say touch test DPN token .test.ts, okay? So check that out for a minute. In the test folder, DPN token .test.ts, okay? And then we come over to our file directory here, and sure enough, there it is, okay? So let's go ahead and begin coding out this test, okay? And so, as you can imagine at this point, perhaps, right at the top, we're going to need to establish a couple numbers and especially do our imports. We need ethers, and we need expect from chai. Okay, we'll talk about each. So we'll start with the chai. Let's import. Nice semicolon, okay? And again, you can use AI the rest of your life, but I think once or twice it's good to really know what's here. Even the tactile memory of typing it is a good thing. What are we pulling in here? So as you can imagine, we have these libraries at this point. We're pulling, hey, go to this library and pull out this book, so to speak, or this group of stuff. And so expect, chai is an assertion library. Okay, so we're asserting a function called expect. And basically it's really just what it sounds like, which is expect this code to run properly, okay? Now, import ethers from Hardhat. Ethers, similarly, is a library. It's provided by Hardhat, but it gives us that framework simply of the Ethereum virtual machine. We want to solidify a couple of constants here in terms of numbers. And this is, again, everything we're typing right now is within the little world of our test, okay? So we can kind of decide what's what. And with this, we're laying out a couple of numbers so that we don't have to type this parse units business every single time. So by doing this, and again, this is coming out of that ethers library. And by doing this, it just means that for the rest of our test, we can simply say 7 or 3, and it's going to know that we have, just like the ethers library suggests, converting human-readable code into something that Ethereum or ethers can understand. What's nice about a test is we get right into describing what we expect. So get there with me. Describe in some parentheses with a quotation. Okay, so we're simply saying, you know, hey, I want to look at this token and make sure that it has ERC20 characteristics, okay? So get there with me. All right, so we're just looking, hey, does this thing have ERC20 characteristics that are promised by that Open Zeppelin contract, okay? Yep, looking good, okay? So we're just checking some amounts here. We're gonna check 100. And again, these will be for later tests. Right now we're just checking, you know, some different balances. Is it responding? So once again, we're naming an amount and then the decimals. Okay. And then let's do 10 here, just to be thorough. We're being a little extra thorough just to educate on writing the test. All right, so we've set up in our describe block here characteristics that we're going to look for, okay? What we're going to do in the test is do a separate test-only, essentially, deployment of the contract, okay? So we're saying, hey, we're gonna deploy, and here's what. Here's our accounts, okay? We're gonna set up our accounts. Here are the tests, basically the people that we're gonna need in the little fictional environment to do our testing, okay? Because we wanna be able to send some stuff around. It's typical to use Alice and Bob. We'll just go with that, okay? Okay. Now, what have we done there? We're setting up, hey, this as a constant, we want these 3 accounts, okay? And we're going to await get signers to assign those accounts and retrieve those accounts, okay? Now we'll set up our contract, okay? Then the name of the contract. All right, and we'll look here a little bit at what we did. We're saying, hey, as a const, when you see this piece of code, DPN, okay, this is what that's going to equal. It means let's wait for the contract factory in Ethers, this library offered by Hardhat, to essentially what happens at a factory, stuff gets made, right? Make this contract, deploy this contract DPN token, okay? And now with the lowercase DPN, we're going to deploy our initial supply, which for our test purposes, we'll go with the 1 million, okay? Okay, and so we could have instituted initial supply, just to throw that back. You know, we have that dictated in our contract, but again, it's almost like we're testing this contract from afar. We're saying, hey, could we use this contract in a typical ERC manner? And so here's a function we can call wait for deployment. Okay, and then what do we want to have happen when that deployment happens? Well, return us some stuff so we can evaluate it, okay? DPN, deployer, Alice, and Bob, okay? I wish I had as much money as Alice and Bob, but I don't. Okay. All right, wonderful. Okay, and then we have a curly brace. Do we have a test yet? No, we've laid the groundwork for some tests. We've laid, hey, this is the stuff that's going to be in the test, essentially. We're going to have these numbers, different units. We've got these different accounts, otherwise known as signers, okay? And why is it called a signer? Because you have to sign to do a blockchain transaction, and we want that. That's our security. Okay, so do we have a test yet? Not quite, right? We've laid out key information for the test. This is what's going to be in play. These different signer accounts, different amounts of tokens we can pass around. And so let me go ahead and scroll up here. And let's come under that curly brace, and let's first look at the metadata, okay? By writing behind 2 backslashes, I've commented out, this is a message I can leave myself that my compiler is not going to mess with. So let's start a describe block called metadata. Okay, so catch up with me there. So now within this describe block, we're going to do a little talking about and testing it, okay? And Chai knows what that is, it being our contract, okay? And we want to say, you know, an ERC should expose a name, a symbol, and decimals. Okay, and once again, that's so important, especially as an investor. If you're going to buy an ERC20 token, you really need to know that information in addition to the total supply. Okay, so this will be an async function. And there we go. Okay, and so now we're going to set up a const. All right, and so that's just making sure that all of this happens after the deployment of the contract, okay? So once again, here's where we are. I've just scrolled up so you can see, okay? All right, so now we get into our expect, and again, this is coming from Chai. Just, Chai, help us expect this code to work normal, okay? Expect, await, but also wait for it. It might take a second. DPN name. And see, that's a function, okay? So we're calling that to equal DPN token, okay? And that looks right? We expect calling this function, hey, what's the function of this DPN, or the name of this DPN rather, to return back a clear name, okay? Can you guess what's next? Yep, symbol. All right, pop a semicolon on there. And then catch up with me there. My apologies. So I'm coming up here. I had put a parentheses here, and that is not correct. We needed to move that down here. So this is the correct code here. Catch up with me there. Okay, and if we come to a terminal, since we have a nicely deployed contract, I'm just going to leave that there and get a fresh terminal. CDD, that's not necessary, but it's just keeping it separate and clean, okay? And see, I'm in my DPIN model. I'm going to clear, just so that we're nice and clear up here, okay? NPX, Hardhat test, okay? Let's see what we got. All right, and I'm seeing here, let's look at our result. I've got 0 passing. Okay, so that doesn't make a lot of sense. So we've got a couple typos that we need to fix, okay? Here's a parentheses that we can't have there, okay? So that needs to come out, okay? And then it exposes name, symbol, and decimals. If we look here, it's missing a comma. So my apologies. We got some shoddy writing there on my part. But this is the way things work. It's just always a combination between speed and efficiency and accuracy. Okay. Oh, here's another. So here's another error. Okay. I keep coming back to, this is real. I'm doing this with you in the moment, but I'm coming back to some errors, okay? And check out what we did. I put deploy instead of deployer. This is a signer account, okay? All right, so I'm just going to go through this line by line. But in a way, I don't want to fix this because this is realistic. I don't want to present anything that doesn't seem pretty reasonable and realistic. Okay, so one thing, I see what it is we have this closing brace here, bracket here, but we're missing one for the closing brace of the DPN token. And so we're just going to add one of those there, okay? So bear with me. So this is real. I hope this is a useful experience. I don't want to pretend or present the idea that I just write perfect things every time right away, okay? But I'm believing that if I save that, and now if I go clear my console, npx hardhat test, we should be passing. Yes, there we go, 1 passing, okay? So that is a realistic step into testing. And it should be a little smoother from here, but indeed it exposes the name, symbol, and decimals, okay? And then in here is some information about how fast it ran, things like that, okay? So let's come back and continue.